2 weeks ago. A clone. It wasn't you. It was like, anyway. Good morning, Lagos. Great to be here as usual on Tuesdays.
Yes, indeed. And Chibuzor, welcome.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Lagos. It's nice being here on this rainy Tuesday
Well,
morning.
is it raining?
Well,
It was raining this
It's
morning.
drizzling out there, so yeah.
I think about 2 a.m. I was up at that time and I could
Oh
hear
no,
it
I
raining.
was still. I think I was in between sleep.
No, I think I'd reach my village and come back all the time.
All the way. All right. So we're starting off with this headline, and it comes from Punch. Court restates order stopping NLC TUC strike. The industrial courts on Monday declared that the order barring the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress from embarking on their planned strike subsists. Now, the court ordered the parties to maintain the status quo and adjourn the matter until July 20th for a hearing.
This government, they, for me, they started one thing, and that is with the labor unions. The first thing is we'll go to court and try and get an adjournment or get a what's it called, an order to stop them, so that at least that will tell you, oh, we're going through legal means while we're trying to discuss. Good. It was expected, because one of the things I expected was, I think the initial committee that was set up along with the governors had come up with a proposal to the president, and I guess that's what they went to discuss yesterday. And from what they said, now they have another 8 weeks. They've set up a presidential steering committee that would report to the president in terms of how they intend to implement, um, like we say, like in Nigerian palace, the palliative recommendation that has been made to the presidency and the committee that is working with the labor unions. Let's see how it goes. Another 8 weeks, and see some of the things that were proposed were transportation allowance and one other allowance. But the truth of the matter for me is, how does that affect every other Nigerian when you consider the fact that how many, I think it's about between 9 and 11% of the Nigerian workforce works for the public sector. Now I'm talking about states and federal government. So what happens to the remaining, is it 79 or 89% who have to, private sector? We also saw over the weekend that one of the banks have increased junior staff's salary. So at the end of the day, some of the organizations are looking at, the staff buses that haven't been used in a long time are being brought back, at least refurbish them, and you can directly look at the cost of it. But let's see how the next 8 weeks goes. What will the federal government do? How much will they be willing to put into the system? Um, in the 8 weeks, what major infrastructure realignment are they going to do? Are they going to quickly, for Lagos State, for instance, bad roads everywhere? They'll tell you it's the rains, but I guess some of those things need to be maintained, and so on. So at least we're not having labor unions, tell everybody to sit at home, which is the usual what's it called, game plan.
Yeah, well, it's a typical approach. I think I'm, like I tell people, this government was sworn in on 29th of May. So if you look at, this is the 20th of June. We've basically had
4
about
weeks.
21 days thereabout. So
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
like I tell you, the government or the president is not a magician. Yeah, all evidences or current evidences aside, war stories aside, he's not a magician. It's gonna take time for some of these things to bed in. They probably decided to take whatever decisions they need to take on things like subsidy as quickly as they could, so that at least they could take advantage of the timing and the goodwill that they have with a lot of their supporters and across the country. So I think some of these solutions will have to come down. My only grouse, and which I've mentioned previously with the labor unions, or my major grouse with labor unions, is that they did not engage prior to the elections. All candidates stated they would get rid of subsidy. My challenge for the labor unions and all other non-profits and all people that were involved was, that was the time you needed to ask them what they would do specifically when they remove this. I think Nigerians, we have to go get past the point where we see elections as an event, a one-off event every 4 years or 8 years, where we gather, we get some people get distributed, money goes into the economy, informal economies, and they are spent. We make a lot of noise, we dial up the tensions, and we forget that what we are doing actually is selecting or choosing a government that will represent us for the next 4 years. So when we become conscious of that, a lot of us will take up our responsibilities as citizens to do the right thing, ask the right question. So we don't need to have a government kicking this ball down the road until when they get comfortable to deal with it.
All right. Well, let us know what your thoughts are. WhatsApp number 0809 4440981. And you can also tweet at smooth981. We're streaming live. And you can catch the live stream and post a comment on there as well. From Daily Post, the president yesterday approved the immediate dissolution of the governing boards of all federal government parastatals, agencies, institutions, and even government-owned companies.
Okay, this is the usual. There's nothing new in this. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Every 4 years, or even during the 4 year tenures of democratic governments, the one of the things that they have in the back pocket is appointments into various government parastatals, NDAs, government-owned companies, or companies where the government is represented and have representatives sitting on their boards. And this is not unique to Nigeria, so a lot of people shouldn't think, oh, it's just how we do things. One of the things that this typically happens is that like I was saying earlier, we were discussing earlier, is that this is also an opportunity to say thank you to all the political loyalists and the people who supported the government in getting to where they got to. We're hoping that in doing that, we would get people that actually have the competence to sit on those boards, people that have the competence to do the work. We're not just going to get political loyalists who need to be thanked and for the work that they did in getting the elections to happen, or their loyalty over the years, like we've seen in some instances over the previously. We need to see people that can drive some of these things, because the truth is, we have a lot of these MDs and MDGs. At some point, we probably would need to see how we can merge some of them who are basically performing duplicate roles. We have some that have come to replace or take over some of the roles that ministries are already performing or should be performing. And at some point, somebody needs to make a call on them. But yeah, this is what it is. The only thing I saw missing from the story, which I was expecting to see in the stories, was obviously the replacement of the service chiefs, or the retirement of the service chiefs, which is one thing that I was, while that also happens with, while we have seen that happen with a lot of whenever we have a new government in Nigeria, my concern with that is that it has a heavy impact on the professionalism of the army. It also has a heavy cost, because unlike some of those political appointees who are one-offs, they come, they earn their salaries and they get out. When you get rid of a serving chief and you get rid of any of these guys, they do go with a large pension. They do go with a lot of things that get paid over time. They are not one-off payments. And also, when we look at the entire value on in the army and on the areas where they were covering, we lose that professionalism, and we create the problem where we create a challenge where people who go there in future look at the fact that they have to be loyal to one entity or the other to keep their careers on. So I'm hoping that maybe this might be the start of a more professional army, more professional military going forward. We would have to repeat this over the next 4 or 8 years.
From Punch, aggrieved farmers whose farms were affected by the ongoing airport project along Adoijan Road in Ekiti State protested yesterday over the non-payment of compensations allegedly promised to them by the state government. Uade?
It's become typical these days that you displace people. Compensations are promised, they are not paid, or they are not paid on time. This happened under the stewardship of Governor Fahemi, and I don't understand. I don't know whether it was part of the handover notes that were brought in, but when you go through the story, the representative who spoke to them said that those monies will be paid, that they hadn't paid them out to any other person. But the fact remains is, government in doing this should have a proper plan. How long are we going to pay it? How much is it? How are we providing for it? If the airport construction is going on, probably needed infrastructure in the state, but you should also ensure that as these things are going on, people who displaced, thank you, displaced from their life, from the source of livelihood. They also are compensated. So some of them could have moved to other places to go and continue the farming. Some of them could have used the money to set up things that could benefit those who are doing the construction. But like I always tell people, that you must look at any infrastructure development, the reason why you have that infrastructure development, and the side effects of what happens. You have people who you have not paid their compensations, who would live within that community, and work is going on. Some of them could have become, could have gone into other forms of trade, and that would support the work that is being done. So when you do things in isolation, so you're building the airport, you haven't paid them, it becomes an issue. And I don't blame them, trying to raise their awareness. But like the spokesman for the ministry said, they're working on it, which is what we usually hear. But how long will it take? That's another question.
All right, 0809440981. Pastor Dakwa says we have to keep our fingers crossed and remain hopeful that we're moving in the right direction with the new appointments of security chiefs and Nuhuru Badu as NSA. Nigeria is currently undergoing a metamorphosis, and keeping hope alive is not only of paramount importance, but also balancing the economic hardship, being benevolent without excluding pragmatism, and taking into consideration. Wow, Pastor Dakpo, I need a dictionary. Pastor Dakpo, oh wow, this is me ducking with all these big words. All right, but we get the point. Thank you for sending your message through. And Dan Okuda says, kudos to the president for the balanced appointments of service chiefs so far. So good. Yinka says, Chibuzor just hit the bull's eye. When all the candidates had their time at the NESG, where was Labour? Even on May 1st, Workers' Day, well over a month after the winner of the presidential election had been declared, who did they invite instead? Their candidate who made his fortune from being a capitalist and suddenly running on a socialist platform. I hope Labour has learned their lesson. And this message is from Ajayi. Ajayi says the president has hit the ground running with the sweeping retirement of service chiefs and head of the MDAs. This must be followed with a complete restructuring of the security architecture and mergers of some MDAs that have overlap functions.
More like scrapping.
So I just wanted to chip in something. One of the things I said was obviously about professionalism. I'd rather that heads of the army or whatever were sacked for incompetence during their tenure, but not as part of the usual political thing. Because if not, we could as well have set up during the elections. We could as well be voting for the head of the army and stuff. If we're going to do it every 4-8 years. So we have to get to that point where people are actually going to be judged on what they have done, not their loyalties or their disposition. Or else feel, I need to bring in my people because of if they are not able to meet up with the KPIs you have set in the course of the 4 years, at some point change them. So people know that the guys who are sitting behind know that they're going to be judged on competence or lack thereof.
All right, do stay with us. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The show continues shortly.
I tell people, Nigeria won't change unless Nigerians change. It's not Nigerians, the way they think about this thing, either me versus us. Also, we are thinking, if all this case is still in court, that's one thing might decide. But people are still on that trajectory. It's him, and I tell you that the interesting thing about Peter Obi was that 2 years ago, the same people were probably that used to say, he's a great man. I like him when he starts in the airport, he carries his own bag. We wish somebody like him runs for president. But once he came against the wrong candidate in quotes in their eyes, it was the opportunity to drown him.
The most irrelevant thing. Someone carrying his bag by himself.
They love the fact that it was simple compared to whatever.
The truth of the matter for me is
our mindset is very interesting.
It's about
That's why we keep
simplicity.
8.1.
It's about how you drive.
This is Justin EJ signing out.
Simplicity is about how you drive. It doesn't mean that you are not
Best of everything in the morning.
flamboyant, but it's about being flamboyant simply.
I don't
Doesn't mean I don't dress well or I don't, but it's about when you see me, I'm just simple. I come in, you walk under me, and then I walk in and I say hi, good morning.
All right.
That's simplicity. Does that mean that I won't send you to do your job? I won't fire you if you don't do your job.
Smooth 98.1. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines. So let us know what your thoughts are. WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also catch the live stream up on our YouTube channel. Just search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos, and you can post a comment underneath that live stream. Let's move on to the next headline. And this one comes from, okay, sorry, I think we already took that one. Yes, we did. So we're moving on to The Guardian. Federal government moves against molesters of school children. Federal government inaugurated a committee for prosecution of child-related gender-based offenders across Nigerian schools. Now, the panel is to chart a comprehensive legal pathway for trial of perpetrators of school-related gender-based violence in the country.
Okay, this is a good story. This is a good to have. Obviously, we know that in recent times we've had various issues about that have been raised. Various stories have come forth about gender-based violence against school children. And this is a step by the federal government to do something about it at that age, at that level. I think also what it speaks to is basically a partnership by the Ministry of Education, UNESCO, and some other bodies to basically develop policy and facilitate the existence of policies geared towards responses to this kind of issues. They're supposed to they have a committee that has been set up to develop an SOP, standard operating procedure, as a working tool to guide basic education stakeholders in pointing to those cases. Now that's fine because I think it's part of the things that need to happen. There should be some SOP or standard operating way where schools, where these kind of cases are brought forth, especially in school environments, should deal with. What I would like to see, and this is me, Oliver Twist, always asking for more, is that the scope of this thing should be expanded further than the schools. It should go into the society, and it's not just the educational institutions. Educational institutions are very, because of the kind of cases we had in recent times, it's very important that the educational institutions are part of it, because the students will pass through them. But also look at the larger communities. When people have this kind of issues, for instance, at home, they go to the police stations. What is the response of the police? What is the response of the communities? In Lagos State, I think there's a bit more of difference, where the Lagos State government has done some work in trying to set up bodies to ensure that these kind of issues are taken seriously. But in a lot of Nigerian institutions, when these kind of cases are brought forth, you either, when in fact we've had instances when they get to the police, and it's a family issue that needs to be settled with the family, because you do not want to bring shame to the family. But it's more than this family issue. The kids are, we always say that the children are our future generation, they're the future of the country, blah blah. We need to take it seriously. We need to ensure that children are protected from everything, even if it comes from their families, even if it comes from within their households. It is not a family issue. When somebody molests somebody within a family, it is a problem for the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the state where the person resides. And we need to have laws and systems and procedures that cater for it. So yes, this is one good step in the right direction, and I hope that we take it forward and improve on it. And there's the child rights bill that also needs to go around, because all these things are part of a single problem, and we need to look at it in a multifaceted approach. So hopefully at some point, and I hope that at some point when President Bat keeps, as he's going through the bills and signing them off, or PBAT, that the child rights bill will be something that he will try and push using his influence and his power to make it happen across the federation for the first time.
All right, thank you for that, Chibuzor. Let's go on to the messages coming through. Anthony says, with the president's appointment of new service chiefs we now have in Nigeria, quite frankly, we hope the saboteurs will not be left to roam while they do their job. Anyways, Nigerians want to breathe a sigh of relief and sleep with both eyes closed. Jerry says, while all the abracadabra is going on, we should get our eyes off the tribunal. The leader we trusted and voted for is on the horizon. That'll be a matter of perspective, I think.
Yeah, let's wait for the courts to end.
This one is from Dr. I, and he says, as usual, there's no reason for the removal of appointments until 3 months. We'll know if these appointments were tight out or just jobs for the boys. And Ali says, Pastor Dyer giving Patrick Obayabon vibes. Is the man still in politics? I wonder where he is now.
He was around during the last elections. He popped up here and there.
Okay.
When they stopped by in Benin and Edo State.
All right. Okay, from Daily Trust, the Nigerian Navy says it will continue to strengthen its special forces in order to defend the nation's territorial waters. Vice Admiral Awal Gambo disclosed this at the weekend during the inauguration of the special forces holding their inauguration of other.
You skipped something, Zibby.
Project.
The former
Former.
chief of naval staff.
Yes.
He made this call at the weekend, and well, I guess his successor would look at all the things, but
It took just a few days from when that was stated.
well, that's life. You make a statement yesterday, and then yeah, it would be in his handover notes, and then he would look at all the things that. Well, the beauty of it is that the new chief of naval staff has been in the Navy. He's probably been at the top echelon for a while. So there's some of those things that they all know about, and they know how to go about continuation from where their predecessors started without having to change the entire system. But when you hear the president talking about changing the security architecture, well, let's see what goes on. But if this special forces is part of the things that they need towards changing the security architecture, then I guess it's something that he has to sit down, look at, and advise the president on how best the new naval security architecture should work and how he would partner with all the other security operatives.
All right, thank you for that, Uade. WhatsApp number 0809 4440981, and you can also tweet at smooth981. Let's just pull up our live stream, see if we have any comments coming through. All right, none at the moment. You can catch the live stream up on our YouTube channel at Smooth981 FM Lagos, and you can also post a comment on there as well. From Vanguard, Lagos State Government unveiled digital registration of commercial motorcycles and tricycles to capture over 80,000 unregistered operators, as well as, of course, enhance security, regulation, and improve efficiency for operators and the community.
Okay, so background. Sometime in 2020, obviously everybody who's in Lagos and around Nigeria, and it's not just Nigeria. Outside, we know about our the keke napeps and the okadas, and in sometime in 2020, the Lagos State government took the step of restricting the operations of some of those modes of transport to particular areas within the state as a larger part of for security, for efficiency of systems, and other reasons why they were brought as. And what the state is talking about, what is happening in this instance is now that they partnered with an entity called SciTech to digitally register about 80,000 bikes that they've supposedly identified as being unregistered. Now, unfortunately, we don't have too much detail of what that agreement is and what SciTech actually will be doing, and how these services will be paid for. With the burden of payment for this is there any payment that will be required for the registration? What's the process for the registration? How is SciTech going to do what they're going to do? We don't know yet, but they're supposed to register 80,000 according to the Commissioner for Transport, or I think let me see, is the Commissioner for Transport, the Director of Operations in the ministry. He's saying that it will also help them sort the security and the safety issues, as well as the leakage of funds. Now, for me, always the details, the devil is in the details. When we talk about solving the security issues, solving the safety issues, for the guys who they have registered today, what security measures are being taken, what safety things are these guys being trained? I live in the state. I move around places where these bikes and some of these guys move around, and while they are essential because there's a lack of infrastructure and there's lack of other means of transport, they need to go through some safety training. There needs to be some form of registration, not just about putting them in some document. Registration should entail also training them to do the right thing, ensuring that they are licensed properly, getting them to do what they need to do properly. So when we talk about also leakage of funds, I'll tell somebody, and I know I might be hit by many people. The major leakage of funds we have here is, if you've ever used any of those means of transport, between one bus stop and the other, there's this guy standing at the side of the road who gives them a ticket, typically has a marker in his hand. All he does is either scribble on their windscreen or scribble on somewhere, and it tears out the ticket. These guys, they collect large amounts of money on a daily basis for every trip that these guys make. Where does that money go into? Who is accountable for that money? That is the leakage that the government should be looking at. Nobody, we speak about it as if it doesn't exist. We talk about taxing the untaxed. This guy is paying formal tax. It will be, if Lagos State could get that into the official coffers and actually someone is accountable for that, then I think we'll be talking less about the leakages that we're having now. But hey, I'm waiting to see what the Ministry of Transportation is talking about in terms of leakages. Are they going to add more burden to the guys who are being registered now to pay more? Or are they going to ensure that what they're already being paid, they get value for what they're being paid for, what they're already paying, or they reduce that unofficial burden, those unofficial fees actually go into the official coffers that they need to go into?
All right, let's go on to WhatsApp. This message is from Gilbert, and he says, on the appointment of the new service chiefs, I'm not excited. Let's ask ourselves what happened when former President Buhari replaced service chiefs. Did we have a more secure environment? I doubt. March 28th, 2022, Abuja, Kaduna, train kidnap and killing on my mind. Cisco Delgado says, until we have a proper database, registering Okada riders will make no sense. And we have just under 2 minutes to go. Let's look at unveiling the security chiefs. And Daily Trust has this on its front page. And do we want to touch on this really quickly?
Oh, well, so one of the things one of the messages that came in is about what's it called? Having the right spread of
ethnic spread, or is it geographical spread now?
I'm trying to having the right spread.
Geography gets ethnic.
Yeah.
So, and vice versa. Yeah.
Having the right spread in this time around by PBAT, like we decided that we're shorting it by PBAT. For me, at the end of the day, first, like I always say, and I think Chibuzor and I have repeated this severally. First, we must be Nigerians, irrespective of what our tribes are. But the next thing for me is competence. Can we go through their history and look at what they've done, whether in different aspects of the army, the navy, the police, even the customs, because Controller General also of Customs have been replaced. And let's hear over the next few days what their agendas will be in terms of driving for those who are in charge of security, in terms of driving they're all in charge of security, the customs for the borders, the police for the people, the army to defend our country, so or the military to defend our country. So they didn't change the National Civil Defense Corps.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I didn't see that there. So does that mean? So what is the new security architecture within National Security Advisor? He should be sitting with them most likely today, and let's start to see what the actions will be over the next 48 hours. We should start to hear that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your messages, and special thanks to our analysts as well, Uade and Chibuzor, for being on the show this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
This day with us, there's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
The headlines.